I can feel the groundedness in Jose, the clarity about of purpose and vision that he has. And I believe there must be conditions around him that helped him to do the things he's doing in the way that he's doing them. We need to talk about how we get our visions on the ground and have the conditions for lots of Jose's, for lots of entrepreneurs, for more of us doing amazing and powerful things tied to vision, tied to what we know works, tied across communities across Puerto Rico. Oop. Oh, fasten your seatbelt. So there are many visions in this room, and one of the things when we go back home, we will need to take our individual visions and think differently about them. This has a mind of its own. My mind is here, technology is here. One of the ways we'll have to think differently is that when we come together for big ideas in this space like this, we become very inspired. And when we go back home to our own neighborhoods and our own families and our own schools, oftentimes we already have many things to do. There's not enough time. We try to talk about new ways, but there's not enough energy. There's not enough resources. So we go into this old way of thinking that we have to choose. We have to choose one way. Should we choose school change? Should we choose early childhood? Should we choose young people where school has not been successful and they have to drop out? We have to think differently about how to have everyone doing what they need to do, where they need to do it, to serve this bigger vision. We have to think about how we can start to see everything on a landscape. Let's see if I can do this time. Ta-da! Applause. This picture helps me think about the landscape of change. So, how much agreement do I need? It depends. Low agreement, I just need to talk about that young people are powerful. I don't need to be certain yet that people are listening. I know it to be true. I'm going to talk about it. I have agreement within myself and within my friends. Young people are powerful. I'm just going to say it to the world. When I move on the agreement axis down to high agreement, it means I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I need to do, how I define it, who I'm doing it with, how I will measure it. Measure it has to do with the certainty axis. How certain can I be now that we've agreed that we need a basketball court in our neighborhood, now that we agree we need more positive youth development undergirding all the good things that we are going to do, how can I balance this certainty and agreement across the landscape? Because you don't need the same in every situation. Some things need plans and institutional anchors. Other places need experiments where you're trying things with new people in new ways. In this picture, I put the boxes down in this lower part of the landscape. If you can't tell, I'm moving on the landscape on the stage, right? So for me, this agreement is going here, all the way down to high agreement. Certainty is coming here, all the way to high certainty. And those boxes in the bottom are where things are very stable and predictable. High agreement and high certainty. An example would be a school. I send my daughter off every day. I know when she arrives at school, there will be teachers there. There will be teachers there ready to teach her. They will not only teach her, but they will assess her. I can be certain that they will assess, so she somehow is on track, or if she's not, I figured that out and we can do something about it. There's a high degree of certainty and predictability in this bottom corner. The institutions that we know, of education, of youth-serving organizations, of the justice system. Now, when we move out of the predictable and order space, we move to random. We move to low certainty and low agreement. Now that, again, might be just fine. There's not a only in the bottom where it's very organized and planned is good. Out here, amazing innovations are happening. I did not know Jose until I came here. All kinds of innovations and excitement are out in the random space, the unstructured space. We just can't see them. And so what we're trying to do as we think about change is bring more of these random and unpredictable things, all the different ideas and different institutions and different people, bring them into the sweet spot so we can start to learn from them, so we can start to work together and take more of the random in the sweet spot and more of the institutions and the organizations out of their bureaucracies, or let their bureaucracies be infused with youth development and measurement and accountability, but let there be some innovation funds to allow organizations to think and act and be in new ways. I want to share a little bit more about this map by sharing an example of a community initiative that moved across this landscape, has been doing this for the last 15 years. Oh, amazing technology. Well, this is an example of a community called Children's First. And in Children's First, they have a tagline. They put their children first, and they have a tagline called My Children, Your Children, Our Children. Right? My daughter, your daughter, our sons and daughters. Children's First for 20 years has adopted a positive youth development framework for all kids to be everyone's kids in this community. It started in a surprising way. A superintendent of schools gave a talk like this, way out in this sort of unorganized space. He had no idea who would be listening like today. He had no idea who would take his message and run with it. This superintendent talked about what he cared about and what he was trying to do in his school district, but he also talked about it wasn't enough and he needed a new way. He needed a community way. And he talked about a youth development framework, a community development framework called the developmental assets that gives you research-based ways to do things, easy things that people can pick up and run with, and ways to measure at the community level, the whole of the landscape, to measure inside his school district down in this lower corner, and anywhere in between. The reason I brought this picture of asset champions, because one of the things that was very interesting to me, the staff person for this community initiative is one woman. She stands in the middle of working with systems on systems change, right? From the top, from the vision and the board, down to the workforce, to the training, to the activities, to the measurement. And she stands connected to neighborhood people listening for new ideas. She had an artist come to her and say, I want to volunteer. And this artist drew caricatures, drew cartoons like this. And so as she sat with some young people and said, what could we do with this artist who wants to volunteer and wants to give his gift? And they started to imagine superheroes. What if we started to ask, who are the superheroes that we see in our community, and they're superheroes because they're helping young people thrive? Like with Jose, they're setting the conditions for young people to thrive. They used this idea and they called forth for specific individuals to be nominated. And these were like the unknown people, the janitor at the school who knew every single young person because he was pushing the broom and listening to the conversation, right? It was the bus driver who was inside the bus driving along, but every day that school was in session, he was saying, hello, how are you? He was watching what's happening in the rearview mirror on his bus. It was people they never expected would be their superheroes. And so when they named these individuals, and they named what they do in their day-to-day that matters. They created a picture, the picture for other people to think about, wow, I can do that, right? I can do that. I can look for that. I can see that. And the reason I want to do that is because it's tied to a bigger idea. The idea that there are things we know matter in the lives of young people. There's things that we actually know matter in our own lives. Connectedness, being known, being asked about your vision and what you care about. Let me see if I can take you, fasten your seatbelts, to this other community. Otherwise, we go to the big finish. Duh, my superpowers are not working today. One more? No. Sometimes technology is amazing, and sometimes low tech. What I want to say, what I want to say is, as I've worked with Children's First, other communities around the country and around the world, there are 5 things that I see that help them navigate a landscape that's very complex, that can't be overplanned and over-orchestrated. Places that do that should do that. Places that need experiments and innovation should do that and watch to see what happens so we can bring it in and anchor it. There are 5 things. And the 5 things are these. Vision matters. That's a little bit obvious, but what I mean by that is the big vision matters, and finding the Jose's, finding the Wilfredos, finding the Nelsons, finding the people who have a deep vision of their own and helping them anchor that vision in positive youth development theory and do it, and inspire others to tell stories about what they see, the difference it makes. Having visions and visionaries that are storytellers will spread this thing like nobody's business. The other thing in terms of that certainty is having some way to know, what are we counting? How will we know? How will we assess where we're going? Is it adding up to the things that we want to do? It is not always about numbers. It can be about stories. But it is about knowing, what are we assessing? How are we doing it? How can we do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm under a microscope, but clear enough sense of what are we measuring and how do we hold each other accountable? Not somebody above holding accountable or a funder holding accountable. That works sometimes, but the best thing is if we can have that tension of top down and really peer accountability. How do I hold myself accountable, actually? Vision, measuring, using data in real time, not long time, seeding the landscape in lots of different ways. So where things are tightly organized, great. Make them tight, work the plan, get all pieces of your workforce and your young people engaged because they understand what they're supposed to do and it matters. Seed innovations in other parts. Keep looking for the superheroes that we haven't yet seen. It is long term, so have fun. If you don't have fun, you will get burned out, frustrated, or cynical. This work is too hard to not find joy in the change, joy in the transformation. And then lastly, know that whoever shows up, whoever comes together today, in your organization, in your family, in your community, those are the right people to get it started. It doesn't take superheroes. It takes us. Saying we have a vision grounded in research, moving together for thriving communities, thriving young people. Thank you, Puerto Rico.